Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. Hoping that you have already subscribed to this channel. Now, so far, we saw how to set up our environment to be ready to get started with JavaScript. So in this tutorial, we are going to see where to actually place our JavaScript code. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, let me create a file here called index.html. So normally you should be familiar with HTML, at least have some basics of HTML before we process forward. So let me just add some content in this our HTML file. So here I am within the body of my index.html file. Okay, now where to place our JavaScript code? As we know, JavaScript in this context interacts with our HTML to be able to manipulate the document object model, as we are going to see later. So we have the script element. So if you're familiar with HTML, you should know what elements means. So all JavaScript, when placed in an HTML document, needs to be within a script element. So a script element is used to link an external JavaScript file or to contain inline scripting, that is script snippets in the HTML file. So a script element is to link to an external JavaScript is something like this. So we have actually the script element. So this is how we actually now here within just in the opening tag, we need to put the source. Within this double quote, you're going to put the path of our index dot or our file JavaScript files. So let's assume that I created the file called index.js, which is actually, so you either put relative path or absolute path, there's no problem. So if I'm putting something like this, that means my index.javascript.js should be in the same directory, that is this JavaScript directory. So as you can see, my index.html and my index.js are actually in the same directory. So as you can see there, I'm actually doing this like this. I'm actually linking this index.js file into my index.html file. So that's the script element, how to link JavaScript code. So for now, of course, maybe you don't understand what's going on, but we are going to see why we are putting it in this way, or how to manipulate, why should we put it like this, and so on. So don't bother about that, just understand that we can link our HTML file and JavaScript file like this, called the script element. That's the first method. So where a script element that contains inline JavaScript code. So this one is the first method. So we have also the second method, which should be something like this. So we just put the script, and then within here, inside here, we have our JavaScript code here. So just within these two tags or elements, we are going to put our JavaScript code here. So this is another way to link our JavaScript code to our index.html file. So this way is called an inline JavaScript. So this an inline, that is actually writing our JavaScript code within the HTML, the specified HTML document. So as you can see there, so I can write any JavaScript code within this tag, something like hello world. So this one is actually JavaScript code within HTML files like this. Or either, instead of doing it like this, just write a script element and then specify the directory and the file name to be linked with this file. So if I want to use the first method, the hello world should be something like this, that is in my index.js file I should put the hello world like this. So that's how it's exactly the same thing. But inline scripting has the advantage that both your HTML and your JavaScript are in one file. So this one actually called inline scripting. So which is convenient for quick development and testing. Having your JavaScript in separate file is recommended for JavaScript functions that can potentially be used in more than one page, and also to separate content from behavior. As we said, remember that HTML is just a structure, and now the behavior is JavaScript. So it's JavaScript that transforms our HTML, which is something static, to be dynamic. That's the behavior. So the inline scripting, using inline JavaScript allows you to easily work with HTML and JavaScript in the same page. This is commonly used for temporary testing. So this way, for temporary testing out of some ideas, and it's in the situation where the script code is specific to that one page, so you can write it like this. So inline HTML content markers, please, this part is very important. The inline HTML, that is this one, this second method, comments are to prevent older browsers that do not understand the script element from displaying the script code in plain text. So there are some older browsers, but even if today there are many, of almost all the browsers understands the script elements. So if you are familiar with HTML, you should notice that this one is actually, we are actually commenting an HTML. This is how we comment something in HTML. So how this one, as you can see there, if you have an older browser, then you should write your JavaScript code like this within this comment. That means everything that is within these markers will not be interpreted by the browser, since this one is actually a comment in HTML. So if you have an older browser that does not understand the script elements, then you should definitely put this, that is, or everything that is within this should be considered as a comment. Of course, if it's a comment, we know that the comment will not be displayed, it's just for readability and visibility. So all the browsers that do not understand the script element will interpret the entire content of the script element as one single HTML comment, beginning with, as we said. So but concurrent browsers that knows about the script element will ignore the first line of script elements if it starts with, so you would not consider actually this. So this one is just to prevent some bad default. So That's one way we can also place our JavaScript code. So as we said, we have here two methods. We can either link like this. Of course there's other ways, but these are more important because we can also of course link it within this header, that is by doing something like this, but that will be discussed later in this course. But for now, just understand that we have actually this one and this second one. Okay, also earlier it's recommended that earlier the script element should be at the end of your HTML code. Let's assume that you have actually an h1 text here. Let's just say this is a header. So you see that this one is actually an HTML element. So with this content, you see that the script here is at the end. So after the script, we should directly see the closing body tags or element of the body. So you cannot actually take this code and put it after the script. Is not recommended because normally when you load a web page, your HTML should load before any other kind of, that is CSS and JavaScript. So the structure at least should be loaded and then there's the behavior later. So you cannot actually load the behavior of something that is not actually rendered. So it's recommended to put it at the end, right at the end of, after you are done with the HTML structure. So that's how it is, something like this. Of course, if you have many JavaScript files, you can of course link them sequentially like this. Let's just say call this one index.2, and of course depending on the path. So that's how we actually link them and we can work with them, as we can see later. So just keep in mind those two ways of doing it. Hope guys you enjoy this tutorial and see you next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.